The billionaire acted like a nobody at his own company until a poor girl did the unthinkable. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, it is free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. On his first day at work, no one recognized him. He stood in the crowded elevator of his own company, shoulder to shoulder with employees who had no idea they were sharing air with the man who signed their paychecks. His name badge said Daniel Reed. Title: New Employee. The Billionaire CEO had chosen this disguise carefully. No driver, no suit, no private office. Just an ordinary man blending into an ordinary Monday morning. The office floor buzzed with keyboards, ringing phones, and low conversations. Daniel took it all in quietly. This was the real company. Not the boardroom version. Not the polished reports. And within the first hour, he learned something important. Power revealed itself quickly. A woman's voice cut through the noise, sharp and impatient. "You, new guy." Daniel turned. She was already holding out her empty coffee cup. "Go downstairs, medium latte, extra foam, and grab a sandwich while you are at it." Her tone was not a request. It was an order. Daniel hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "All right," he said calmly. As he walked away, he heard her laugh softly. "Do not look so confused," she added. "You should be grateful. My boyfriend is the branch director here. I can make your life very easy, or very difficult." Daniel said nothing. He returned with the coffee. With the sandwich, the woman barely thanked him. From that moment on, it became routine. Every morning, Daniel was sent for drinks. Every afternoon, food. Every mistake, blamed on him. Every success, taken by someone else. And no one stopped it. Except one person. Across the office sat a young woman named Emily. She had been with the company for years. She was not loud, she was not connected, but she was good. Very good. Emily noticed everything. She saw Daniel being sent away while others relaxed. She saw how the woman used her relationship with the branch director like a weapon. She saw the way Daniel never argued back. One afternoon, as Daniel struggled through a complicated system he had never been trained on, Emily quietly stood beside him. "You are doing it wrong," she said gently. Then she smiled. "Not because you are slow, because no one showed you." She pulled up a chair and walked him through the process step by step. Daniel listened carefully. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Emily shrugged. "Because I know what it is like to need this job," she said. "And because no one deserves to be treated like that." Later, during a short break, Daniel noticed Emily eating alone. Her lunch was simple, homemade, carefully packed. "I usually skip lunch," she admitted when he sat nearby. "But today I was really hungry." There was something in her voice. Not complaint, just honesty. Over the next few days, Daniel watched her closely. Emily worked harder than anyone else. She fixed problems before managers noticed them. She stayed late without asking for credit. And when the woman with power crossed the line, Emily stepped in quietly, redirecting blame away from Daniel without starting a fight. One evening, as the office emptied, Emily sighed and leaned back in her chair. "I just want to keep my job," she said softly. Daniel felt something shift inside his chest. He had come undercover to find corruption. He did not expect to find integrity. And as he watched Emily pack up her desk under the flickering office lights, Daniel realized something dangerous. He was no longer just observing. He was falling for her. And he was about to uncover a truth that would change all of their lives forever. The next few days passed quietly on the surface. But underneath, everything was shifting. Daniel Reed continued to arrive early and leave late, just like everyone else who feared being noticed for the wrong reasons. He kept his head down, listened more than he spoke, and let the office reveal itself to him piece by piece. And it did not take long. Melissa's behavior grew bolder. Once she realized Daniel would not push back, she stopped pretending. She sent him for coffee twice a morning. She placed stacks of unfinished work on his desk without explanation. When deadlines were missed, She laughed and said his name out loud, making sure others heard. "He is new," she would say sweetly. "He is still learning." Daniel accepted it all without a word. But Emily noticed the pattern. She saw how Melissa waited until managers walked away before raising her voice. She saw how the branch director never questioned Melissa's numbers, never checked her reports, never noticed the small mistakes that kept appearing under other people's names. One afternoon, as Daniel struggled to meet an impossible deadline Melissa had set, Emily quietly pulled her chair closer. "She does this on purpose," Emily said softly. "She overloads you so you fail." Daniel looked at the screen, then at her. "Why does no one stop her?" he asked. Emily hesitated. "Because she is protected," she said. "And because people like us cannot afford to be." There was no bitterness in her voice, just truth. Emily stayed with him that afternoon, guiding him through shortcuts, double-checking his work, making sure his name did not end up attached to someone else's failure. When Melissa walked by and frowned, Emily did not look up. She kept working. Later that week, something small happened. Melissa ordered Daniel to buy lunch for her and her friends. Expensive orders. Specific requests. No cash offered. Daniel stood, ready to comply. Emily stood too. "I will go with him," she said casually. "We are already behind on the report. It is faster this way." Melissa narrowed her eyes, annoyed, but said nothing. Outside the building, Emily sighed. "You should not pay for that," she said. "She does not deserve it." Daniel shrugged. "It is fine." Emily stopped walking. "No," she said gently. "It is not." She reached into her bag and handed him a few dollars. "It is not much," she said, "but you should not be the only one paying." Daniel stared at the money in his hand. It was not the amount that stayed with him. It was the fact that she had so little and still offered it. That night, Daniel stayed late alone in the office. The lights above his desk buzzed softly as he opened files he was not supposed to see, systems he had built himself but now accessed as a nobody. What he found confirmed his instincts. Altered reports, inflated performance numbers, expense approvals that led back to the same names. Melissa, the branch director, together. Meanwhile, Emily was still working. She corrected an error in a major account moments before it was sent out, preventing a costly mistake. No one noticed. No one thanked her. Except Daniel. "You saved the team today," he said quietly as they packed up. Emily smiled faintly. "That is my job." He wanted to tell her everything then. Who he was, why he was here, but he did not. Because he needed to know one more thing. The following morning, Melissa blamed Daniel for an error he did not make. The accusation echoed across the office. Heads turned. Silence followed. Before Daniel could speak, Emily did. "That is not true," she said calmly. "I reviewed his work myself." Melissa laughed. "You sure you want to defend him?" Emily met her gaze. "I am sure," she said, "because it is the truth." The room felt different after that. Heavier, sharper. Daniel looked at Emily, heart pounding. In that moment, he stopped being just an observer. He knew now. She was not kind because it was easy. She was not brave because it was safe. She did the right thing even when it cost her. And soon, very soon, the truth about everyone in that room was going to come out. The tension in the office did not disappear after that moment. It hardened. Melissa stopped pretending to be polite. Her smiles vanished. She made sure Daniel was always watched, always blamed, always on the edge of trouble. And Emily paid for defending him. Her workload doubled overnight. Tasks were reassigned without explanation. Meetings were scheduled without her name on the list. When she asked questions, she received silence. Still, she did not complain. Daniel saw everything. He noticed how Emily arrived earlier than before, leaving when the cleaning crew turned off the lights. He noticed how she skipped lunch more often, choosing instead to finish reports no one else wanted to touch. One evening, Daniel found her alone in the break room, staring at her phone. "You okay?" he asked. Emily hesitated, then nodded. "My mother called," she said quietly. "The electricity bill is late again. I told her not to worry." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. Not the kind that demanded revenge, but the kind that demanded justice. That night, he stopped pretending. He logged into systems only one person in the company could fully access. He followed money trails, approval chains, performance metrics that never made sense on the surface. What he uncovered was worse than he expected. The branch director had been falsifying results for over a year. Losses were hidden, bonuses were redirected, Melissa's name appeared again and again, tied to approvals she did not earn and money she did not deserve. And Emily's work? It was everywhere. Uncredited, unrecognized, used to prop up a corrupt system. The next morning, Melissa crossed a line she could not take back. She called Emily into a small meeting room. The door closed. When Emily returned, her face was pale. "She warned me," Emily said later, voice low. "She said, if I keep helping you, I will lose my job." Daniel clenched his jaw. "I am sorry," he said. Emily shook her head. "You did nothing wrong," she replied. "I chose this." That was the moment Daniel made his decision. The following week, a company-wide meeting was announced. Mandatory attendance. No explanation. Whispers filled the office. Melissa looked confident. The branch director looked relaxed. Emily looked nervous. Daniel stood among them, still wearing his badge, still playing his role. But inside, everything was ready. The conference room filled slowly. Executives from headquarters joined by video. Legal representatives sat quietly at the back. The branch director began speaking, praising performance, highlighting growth. Then the screen changed. Numbers appeared, graphs, dates, names. The room fell silent. Daniel stepped forward. He removed his badge and placed it on the table. "My name is Daniel Reed," he said calmly. "And I am the CEO of this company." Gasps rippled through the room. Melissa froze. The branch director stood abruptly. "This is some kind of joke." Daniel did not raise his voice. "It is not," he said, "and neither is the evidence." He explained everything. The falsified reports, the stolen credit, the misuse of power, each claim backed by proof. Melissa tried to speak. They were escorted out before they finished a sentence. Emily sat frozen, hands trembling. She did not feel victorious. She felt small. After the meeting, she did not wait for Daniel. She packed her things and left quietly, slipping out of the building as if she did not belong there. Daniel searched for her that night. Then the next morning, finally, he found her standing at a bus stop near her apartment, holding her coat tight. "I did not know," she said when she saw him. "If I had known who you were, I would have acted differently." Daniel shook his head. "That is exactly why I fell in love with you," he said softly. "You treated me with kindness when you thought I was nothing." Emily looked away, tears forming. "I am just a poor employee," she whispered. Daniel stepped closer. "You are the strongest leader I have ever met," he said. And for the first time since all of this began, Emily allowed herself to hope. Emily did not return to the office the next morning. Her desk sat untouched, her chair pushed in neatly like she had planned not to come back. Word spread quickly. Some said she had quit. Others said she had been overwhelmed by everything that happened. Daniel knew the truth before anyone told him. She was running, not from him, but from the distance she suddenly felt between them. For the first time since going undercover, Daniel did not go to work. Instead, he stood outside a small apartment building on the edge of the city, hands in his coat pockets, waiting. When Emily finally appeared, carrying a grocery bag and looking exhausted, she froze. "You should not be here," she said softly. "I know," Daniel replied, "but I needed to see you." Emily looked away. "I cannot do this. Yesterday, you were just a coworker. Today, you are the CEO. I do not belong in your world." Daniel stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "You belonged before you ever knew who I was," he said. That did not change. Emily shook her head. "Everything changed. People will say I helped you because of who you are. They will say I benefited from it." To Creeding, Daniel felt the weight of her fear. It was real. It was earned. "That is why I did not come as your boss," he said. "I came as the man you defended when it cost you." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I was just trying to survive," she whispered. "And you did it with integrity," Daniel said. "That is rare." The following week, Daniel returned to the office alone. The atmosphere had changed completely. People spoke softer, they worked harder, they watched carefully. And then the announcement came. A restructuring. New leadership. A promotion based on performance, not connections. When Emily received the email, she stared at it in disbelief. Branch Director Appointment Review. Mandatory meeting. She almost did not go. But when she entered the room, Daniel was already there, seated among others, not at the head of the table. The presentation spoke for itself. Metrics. Projects. Improvements tied directly to Emily's work. No mention of personal relationships. No mention of him. When the meeting ended, the decision was clear. Emily was offered the position, not because she was close to the CEO, but because she had been doing the job all along. She stood there in silence, heart racing. "I do not know if I can accept," she said finally. Daniel met her eyes. "You already earned it," he said. "This is just the title catching up." That evening, as the office emptied once more, Emily walked out beside him. No badges, no hierarchy. Just two people who had seen each other at their most honest. "I am still afraid," she admitted. Daniel smiled gently. "So am I," he said. "But maybe that is what makes it real." They stopped at the building entrance, city lights glowing around them. Emily took a breath. "Then let us start there," she said. And for the first time, Daniel did not feel like a billionaire pretending to be nobody. He felt like a man who had finally found someone who saw him clearly, not for his power, not for his money, but for who he was when none of it was visible. Emily accepted the position 1 week later. Not because Daniel asked her to, not because anyone pressured her. She accepted because, for the first time in her life, someone had looked at her work and seen her. Her first day as branch director felt unreal. She arrived early, the same way she always had. She walked the floor, greeting employees by name, listening more than she spoke. There was no corner office celebration, no announcement speech from her, just quiet change. People noticed quickly. Deadlines were respected. Credit was given where it belonged. Bullying stopped being tolerated, not through fear, but through clarity. Emily did not raise her voice. She did not threaten. She simply made it clear that integrity was no longer optional. Daniel watched from a distance. He did not interfere. He did not guide her decisions. He wanted the company to see what he had already seen, long before anyone knew his name. Leadership built on character lasts longer than leadership built on power. Their relationship grew slowly. They shared dinners after long days. Walks through the city where no one recognized them. Conversations that had nothing to do with work. Emily spoke about her family, her fears, the years she spent feeling invisible. Daniel spoke about the loneliness that came with wealth, the constant doubt about who saw him and who saw his money. One evening, Emily stopped walking and looked at him. "When you were undercover," she said, "were you testing me too?" Daniel answered honestly. "I did not know I was," he said, "but you showed me who I wanted to be." Emily smiled softly. Months later, the company published its annual report. Profits were stable. Employee turnover dropped. Trust returned. Emily's branch became the model others were sent to study. During a quiet board meeting, Daniel made one final announcement. He stood, not as the billionaire CEO who had exposed corruption, but as the man who had learned his most important lesson pretending to be nobody. "Integrity does not announce itself," he said. "It reveals itself when no one is watching." That evening, Daniel invited Emily to the place where it all began. The building lobby, the polished floors, the glass walls. But this time, it was empty. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out an old badge. Daniel Reed. New employee. "I kept it," he said, "to remind myself who I was when you chose kindness." Emily felt tears rise. "You never needed to test me," she said. Daniel smiled. "I know," he replied. "That is why I fell in love with you." He took her hand, not as a CEO, not as a director, but as a man asking the woman who changed his life to walk forward with him. Emily squeezed his hand. "Yes," she said. And in that moment, the billionaire who once acted like a nobody finally understood something priceless. True power is not revealed by titles. True love is not drawn to wealth. It is drawn to the person you are when no one is watching. And that was the greatest success story the company would ever tell. Time passed, and life settled into something steady. Not perfect, but honest. Emily grew into her role as branch director with quiet confidence. She listened more than she spoke. She corrected problems without humiliating anyone. Slowly, the culture shifted. People stopped working out of fear and started working out of pride. Daniel stayed true to his promise. He never interfered with her leadership. He never protected her from criticism. When she succeeded, it was because she earned it. When she struggled, she worked through it like everyone else. That mattered to her. One evening, after a long week, Emily sat alone in her office, staring at a spreadsheet she could not quite make sense of. Doubt crept in, soft but persistent. Daniel knocked gently on the open door. "Still here?" he asked. Emily smiled tiredly. "I wanted to make sure this report was perfect." Daniel stepped inside and sat across from her. "You know," he said, "when I was undercover, I learned something important." Emily looked up. "I thought power came from control," he continued. "But the strongest people I met were the ones who carried responsibility quietly." "Like you." Emily exhaled slowly. "Sometimes I still feel like I do not belong," she admitted. "Like someone will wake up and realize I am not supposed to be here." Daniel shook his head. "You were already here long before the title," he said. "The title just caught up late." Weeks later, Emily received a call from her mother. The electricity bill was paid. The refrigerator was full. There was relief in her mother's voice, the kind that made Emily step outside and cry quietly behind the building. Daniel did not say anything. He simply stood beside her until she was ready to speak. That night, as they walked home together, Emily stopped under a streetlight. "I used to think survival was the same as living," she said. "Now I know the difference." Daniel took her hand. "You taught me that," he replied. Months later, the company hosted a small internal gathering. No press, no cameras, just employees. Daniel stood before them, not as the distant billionaire they once feared, but as someone who had walked among them unseen. "I learned the most important lessons in this building, wearing a badge that said new employee," he said. "And I learned them from people who thought they had nothing to gain." His eyes met Emily's. "Kindness is not weakness," he continued. "It is clarity." The room was silent. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Emily leaned against him. "Do you ever regret going undercover?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "It cost me comfort," he said. "But it gave me truth." They left the building together, the city stretching out ahead of them. Emily thought of who she had been when this began. A woman afraid to speak, afraid to lose everything. Daniel thought of who he had been. A man surrounded by power, unsure of what was real. Neither of them was that person anymore. They had built something stronger than success, something quieter than wealth. They had built trust, and as they walked forward, hand in hand, they knew this was not the end of the story. It was the proof of it. The rumors started quietly. At first, they sounded harmless. Whispers near the copy machine. Pauses when Emily entered a room. Conversations that stopped just a second too late. She moved up fast. She must be protected. No one rises that quickly without help. Emily pretended not to hear them. But words have weight, even when they are spoken softly. One afternoon, an anonymous complaint reached headquarters. It questioned Emily's promotion. It hinted at favoritism. It suggested her relationship with Daniel had influenced decisions. Daniel read the report twice. Then he closed the file. That evening, he found Emily sitting alone in her office, staring out at the city lights. "They are questioning me," she said before he could speak. "Not my work. Me." Daniel sat across from her. "This is the last test," he said calmly. Emily looked at him. "For who?" "For everyone," he replied, "including us." The following week, an independent audit team arrived. No warnings. No special treatment. Emily welcomed them herself. She opened every file, every decision, every performance review. She answered questions without hesitation, without defensiveness. Daniel stayed out of sight. He wanted the truth to stand on its own. Days passed. Tension filled the building. Employees watched closely, unsure who would fall and who would remain standing. Emily felt the pressure more than anyone. One night, she stayed late again, reviewing reports, line by line. Doubt crept in. What if they are right? She whispered to herself. What if my work is not enough? Daniel found her there, shoulders tight, eyes tired. You are not here because of me, he said gently. You are here because you earned it. Let the truth speak. A court. She nodded, but fear lingered. When the audit concluded, the entire branch was called into the conference room. Emily stood at the front, hands clasped, heart racing. The lead auditor spoke clearly. Our review found no evidence of favoritism, misconduct, or improper influence. A pause. On the contrary, he continued, we found consistent patterns of exceptional performance, leadership, and ethical decision-making. He looked directly at Emily. This promotion was not generous, he said. It was overdue. The room exhaled. Some looked ashamed. Others looked relieved. Emily felt tears rise, but she held them back. After the meeting, Daniel finally stepped forward. Not as a rescuer, not as a shield, but as a partner. That night, they walked together again through the quiet city. I was afraid, Emily admitted. Afraid that loving you would erase everything I worked for. Daniel stopped and turned to her. Love should not erase you, he said. It should reveal you. Emily smiled through tears. In that moment, she understood something deeply. This was not a fairy tale rescue. This was a shared climb, and they had both passed the final test. The building felt different after the audit. Not tense, not fearful, honest. People spoke more openly. Meetings were shorter, clearer, decisions were documented, not whispered. The culture Emily had been quietly building now had proof behind it. One afternoon, as she walked the floor, a junior employee stopped her. I just wanted to say thank you, he said, for making it safe to do the right thing. Emily smiled, surprised. Moments like that mattered more than titles ever could. That evening, Daniel invited her somewhere unexpected. Not a restaurant, not a hotel. The old training room on the 3rd floor. The place where new employees once sat, nervous and unseen. Emily stepped inside and laughed softly. You brought me here? Daniel nodded. This is where I first watched you stand up for someone when no one else would. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. It was a single page, an internal initiative proposal. Daniel placed it on the table between them. It is called the Open Door Program, he said. Anonymous reporting. Mentorship. Protection for people without connections. Emily read silently. You want me to lead this? She asked. I want you to design it, Daniel replied. I want the company to be shaped by the values that protected you when I was invisible. Emily felt emotion rise in her chest. This will change things, she said. That is the point, Daniel answered. Over the next months, the program spread company-wide. Employees began speaking up. Patterns of abuse surfaced and were addressed early. For the first time, people believed fairness was not just a slogan. Emily worked harder than ever. But this time, she was not alone. Daniel supported her quietly, never overshadowing her work. Their relationship stayed grounded. No grand announcements, no public displays, just shared mornings, shared meals, shared purpose. One night, as they sat together reviewing feedback from the program, Emily leaned back and closed her eyes. I used to think kindness was risky, she said. Now, I know silence was the real danger. Daniel nodded. And I used to think leadership meant distance, he said. You showed me it means presence. Outside, the city lights flickered like stars. Emily turned to him. Do you ever miss being undercover? She asked. Daniel smiled. I miss the clarity, he said. But I do not miss being alone. Emily reached for his hand. You were never alone, she said. You just needed someone to treat you like you mattered before they knew why. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. The work they had begun was bigger than either of them. It was no longer about exposing corruption. It was about preventing it. And as they sat there, side by side, in the same room where everything had started, both of them understood something quietly powerful. The greatest transformation was not the company. It was them. They had become leaders not because of authority, but because of choice. And the final chapter was waiting. The year ended quietly. No headlines, no viral speeches, just results. Employee satisfaction rose. Turnover dropped. Complaints were handled before they became damage. The open door program became part of onboarding, not a special initiative, but a standard. And Emily? She never changed the way she walked into the building. Same pace, same focus, same habit of greeting people by name. One evening, long after most lights were off, Daniel waited for her in the lobby. The same lobby where he once stood unnoticed, holding coffee orders that were not his. Emily stepped beside him, keys in hand. "You look thoughtful," she said. Daniel smiled. "I was remembering my first day here." She laughed softly. "You were terrible at pretending to be new." "Maybe," he said. "But you were incredible at being yourself." They stepped outside together, the city cool and calm around them. Daniel stopped. "There is one more thing," he said. Emily raised an eyebrow. That tone usually means change. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, familiar badge. Daniel Reed, new employee. "I kept this to remind myself of who I was when everything mattered," he said, "and who showed me what leadership actually looks like." Emily felt her chest tighten. "Daniel," he took a breath. "I spent my life building companies," he said. "But the best thing I ever built started the moment you chose kindness over fear." He knelt down, not because of tradition, but because of intention. "I am not asking you as a billionaire," he said. "I am asking you as the man you defended when you thought he was nobody." He opened his hand. A simple ring. No spectacle. No audience. "Will you walk forward with me?" he asked. "As my equal?" Emily did not hesitate. "Yes," she said. And in that moment, the building behind them meant nothing. Months later, the wedding was small. No press, no executives, just family. Friends. Employees who had watched the transformation happen from the inside. Emily's mother cried openly. Daniel smiled more than he ever had. During the quiet reception, someone asked Emily how it felt to marry a billionaire. She smiled politely. "I married a man who listens," she said. "Everything else is just noise. Everything else is just noise." The final scene came much later. A new hire stood nervously near the elevator. Badge freshly clipped. Emily walked by and stopped. "First day?" she asked. The employee nodded. Emily smiled warmly. "You belong here," she said. "Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." From across the room, Daniel watched. And he understood. This was never just a love story. It was a reminder. That kindness reveals character. That power reveals truth. And sometimes, the greatest leaders are the ones who first learn how to be nobody.